John Brennan does a great job covering the sports biz, gaming, Meadowlands since 2002. Extremely credible, covered New Jersey and New York sports biz as well. Kind enough to join me. Great follow on Twitter as well at Bergen Brennan. Busy day, John. I appreciate you making a couple moments on this Monday. How you been?
Good. It's been 7 years in the making, this saga, but today's the big day.
That's right. You keep pulling the rubber band long enough, it's going to snap and it's going to break. You actually tweeted something very interesting too that I read off on the air. So the legislative takes July and August off. So basically, a lot of people have been texting in asking, well, when do they think this will be a go at the tracks and casinos when you talk about these permitted sites for the new legal gambling? Do you think by football season everything will kind of take shape and form and this will all be legit and ready to go?
Yeah, I would expect so. The timing of this ruling is pretty interesting because it's almost ideal that you don't feel like you're losing so much revenue if you aren't in tomorrow, but there's plenty of time before the start of the football season. So basically the New Jersey current law had been to privatize the regulation. So the state racetrack and casinos would do it themselves because the New Jersey was rejected in its first try to get this federal law invalidated. So there's a little work to do in the legislature because now they have the opportunity to have state authority over the gambling, which they preferred anyway. So,
right.
They'll come up with something like that. But beyond that, the other one people want to ask about is what about online? Do I have to go to the track or the casino? And that's really unclear right now because originally the whole idea was designed to help the ailing racetrack industry and the ailing Atlantic City casino industry. That's where you'd have to go for the bets. And keep in mind, this goes back to 2011. So, the idea that everything has to be done online was not even fully formed yet. So it's really a new era here. So I think there may be a debate down in Trenton over whether to sort of maximize revenue by offering online or to maximize help to those industries by forcing you to go to those places to make the bets.
That's an interesting point. I was not thinking about that. Listen, at the end of the day, who would be against this, right? Who's looking at today's decision and saying, oh, you got to be kidding me?
Well, nobody, particularly in the state legislature. That's one of the rare bipartisan agreements in Trenton. So there's not going to be any problem getting some sort of law passed. I mean, like I said, they'll have to figure out whether to offer online gaming right away or how to do that. But I don't think that's going to stop the law from happening. It's just a point of debate. But, the leagues say that, this is potential disaster and all that. But, over the years, that's become a bit less credible with their partnership with daily fantasy sports companies and a number of owners and even commissioners in leagues coming out. They want federal oversight of sports betting, but this is not going to be that different necessarily.
So then, just in layman's terms for the listening audience, Congress can regulate sports gambling directly, but if it elects not to do so, then basically each state is free to act on their own.
Right. That was one of the most strangest parts of this 1992 law that was sponsored by Senator Bill Bradley of New Jersey. I spoke to him once, and he was offended at a Knicks game at Madison Square Garden when he was a player because the fan seemed unhappy courtside, after the Knicks had just won, and he asked him why. And the guy told him, you won, but you didn't cover the spread. I lost my money. And Bradley was personally offended by that. How dare you treat me like a poker chip? So that's why the ban was put into effect. But it's the first law and really the only law in U.S. history that banned something but didn't have the federal government not only ban it but also oversee the ban. They just said, well, you can't do it, and each state should just make sure it doesn't happen. And that's why this became a states' rights issue and really why the court took this case. I mean, sports betting is not so important in the grand scheme of things, but the idea of whether Congress can sort of meddle in states' regulation or decisions is a fundamental issue. So obviously that's a conservative-leaning issue. So the conservative justices and Justice Kagan on the liberal side, they all sided with the idea that the state should just do what they want. That being said, could Congress tomorrow, in theory, pass a law where they ban it and they are going to own it, so to speak? They could, but they won't.
I found it interesting, the timing, because I earlier when I came on the air during the opening monologue, I was talking about how I read an interesting article in the Times and I think Wall Street Journal, how a couple of unnamed Major League Baseball executives were either potentially or have already reached out to a couple different gambling sites and networks about potential advertising within the stadium. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. That can be a nice little topic of discussion today. And then boom, everything else comes down today. And I kind of chuckled because you've got two casinos in our backyard, the rebranding of the Revel, which obviously will be the Ocean Resort, and then the Hard Rock. They're set to open the same day in late June. I just found the timing of everything, I don't know. Sometimes I throw conspiracy theories out there, but I think the timing of it, especially today, knowing that those two once rebranded and the other casino is going to open up in June, is well, just the timing is a little unique. I'll just leave it at that.
The real timetable goes back to the Supreme Court set up the oral argument in Washington, D.C. for December of 2017. So once that happens, it's going to take 3 or 4 months to get this case decided. So it was definitely going to be decided, certainly by the end of June, at the end of their session. But, the expectation was it would be decided this month based on that.
Again, a couple minutes with John Brennan. Does a great job covering sports gaming industry and biz as well. Great follow on Twitter at Bergen Brennan. Joining me for a couple minutes on a Monday on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. When you made a point about the NFL, and Adam Silver in the NBA is a little more progressive, forward-thinking owner. And I know the NFL and Goodell, he always comes out, you got to protect the shield, the integrity of the game. I was kind of chuckling when I hear those comments because now people are really going to be involved in the Thursday Night Football. So, ratings are going to go up regardless because they're going to be a little more invested, so to speak. But do you think eventually they're just going to understand, listen, we might as well just follow suit with the NBA because the NBA, listen, they can make the money. They know they're going to make money off of it. Are they going to spend more money? I think down the road when you have to deal with, lobbying from state to state, sure. But in the long term, they're going to make the money. And they know that it's prevalent, gambling is, especially in the NFL, because when you watch these games, what are some of the commercials we see? The fantasy sports. So do you think that the NFL is just going to turn around one day and Goodell's going to be like, you know what, hey, it's money for us. Let's just figure out a way to just make it clean. We can legislate it, and everyone wins here.
I've always kind of felt that the NFL, at least official opposition, may well be in part due to Congress's official opposition. The NFL is, as you said, they protect their shield and they're a strong brand and they're very aggressive and they're a big business, but nobody can mess with Congress. So, and Congress, there's all kinds of antitrust and other issues that, in theory, Congress can look into with sports leagues. So, I have always wondered if, based on the fact that Congress has an official position against it, that they want to just go along with Congress. They don't want to tick off Congress. So now they may be looking for a signal, okay, are you guys going to look to ban this, or are you going to agree with it? Do you care? That sort of thing. So I think the NFL will come around.
Does this really help and stimulate the old I was a big fan of going to the tracks, especially when I was in South Jersey, Cherry Hill, around there. You got Monmouth as well. You had Yonkers Raceway, many, many moons ago. How does this really help now the horse racing industry?
Yeah, the Meadowlands Racetrack operator, Jeff Gural, has wondered about that too. Obviously, you'll get a lot of new people coming to your facility that have never been there before or only been there maybe once or many years ago. That's helpful. But if you think about it, let's say a guy bets $100 a weekend on the horses, right? And now when he goes there on the weekend, he can instead bet on the college football game or the pro football game. So does he bet 50 on the horses now and 50 on the sporting events, so now the handle goes down? Or does he still bet the 100 and then he bets another 50 on the games? And that's really kind of unknowable at this point. That's
actually a really great point. Because you're enticed, or do you just want to kind of hedge your bet, right?
Well, yeah, and the sports betting doesn't make as much money as the horse race betting does with the takeout and all that.
Right,
so if they're going to divert a lot of their money to gambling on the sporting events instead of the races, that's not going to be good for the horse racing industry.
Yeah, and I mentioned Monmouth Park too. I guess they knew something 4 years ago because when they created their sports book, it was on the premise and the thought that, okay, you'll be able to legally gamble. So, I mean, it's a win-win for them. I'm curious, before I let you get out of here, do you ever foresee a scenario where maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but in the States with all these venues, these stadiums and arenas, where there will be an opportunity to just walk up, you get your ticket or you go through the kiosk or whatever, you grab your ticket or you're getting a beer and you're getting a hot dog, and then you'll have a betting window?
Yeah, I mean, they already have that in Europe.
Exactly.
For many years.
Yeah.
And I think it's inevitable. Ted Leonsis, who owns the Washington Capitals and the Wizards, is very much in favor of that. And I think that what will happen is some owners like that who are really sort of forward-thinking on that issue will do it, and it will work, and it won't end the republic as we know it. And then other teams will say, well, I guess we can wade in, and then eventually everybody kind of follows suit. I mean, it wouldn't shock me in 5 years if you could not only do that, but you'll be able to bet you're at the game and, Aaron Judge is up with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, and you'll get 4-1 odds on whether he gets a hit.
Unbelievable.
You're going to bet $20 right there, and in the next 2 minutes, so then if he hits the home run, let's say you got 20-1 on the home run, he hits the home run, you not only celebrate because you won the Yankees won the game, but you just won $400 too. I think that's coming. Yeah. They have that in Europe too, by the way.
You're talking. They have that at William Hill, right? Which is the London-based bookmaking company. Yeah. Well, can you imagine that? If you're a fan, bottom of the knife, what are you more worried about? Someone getting a hit or a strikeout?
I mean, it's going to happen. All these things seem impossible, but when I refer to Europe, it's amazing the things they've been doing for years. They ran into a few match fixing issues where the bet was on who would score the first goal, or how many goals would be scored. And there were even referees involved, calling penalty kicks and that sort of thing. So, it has to be regulated, though. Whether gambling's legal or illegal, there's still a potential for corruption.
Yeah, and a couple guys have mentioned that today while I've been on the air. I can't see a scenario. We know what happened in the 60s and went out of the late 50s into 60s with Horning and Karras, and we've seen the point shaving. We saw Tim Donaghy. We know what happens in boxing over the years as well, or has had happen in boxing. If you're a player, I just don't know. You're really going to risk your whole career and millions of dollars unless someone's really giving you a ridiculous amount of money. And at the end of the day, you watch the NBA, it's pretty easy for officials or refs to foul out a guy. It's pretty easy in the NFL to maybe pick up the flag or not throw the flag. I just don't know how the players would be coaxed into, or at least being lured into this.
Well, college athletes certainly can be.
Well, that's the big one, not the pros, but the college athletes. That would be my one concern. Yeah. And how are they going to monitor that? How are they going to track it?
The thing is, though, that issue is already existed yesterday. Nothing changed. If the games can be bet on legally, that concern or issue is not changed. There are people betting, billions of dollars on college sports already illegally. So and legally in Nevada, and so now more people will bet legally, and plenty of people will still bet illegally, by the way, instead. But the issue is still the same. You mentioned Donaghy. I covered the NBA in the 1990s when they actually let the media sit courtside. They sell those seats for thousands of dollars a game now. But I would see Tim Donaghy. I'd be 5 feet away from him calling the foul. I could see the play, and I would think it was a lousy call, but I never thought it was corrupt. I mean, he was able to do that literally right under our noses, and you just couldn't believe that a guy was doing that, but he was doing it.
Yeah, listen, I had him on. I was one of the first guys that got him right after that 60-minute special, and I went after him, and then the second time around, you can't hide from the camera, right? And you can't. The film doesn't lie. My goodness, that was something. What was that? That was 2004, 2005? That was the Lakers and the Kings series, right? The alleged series.
It was 2002, maybe. Yeah, I remember watching that game and being astonished by the amount of bad calls. It was unbelievable. I was watching because I had plane tickets the next morning to fly either to Sacramento or Los Angeles. So, people say, who do you root for? Well, you root for the city. I was rooting for Los Angeles. I've been to Sacramento too many times, to be honest with you.
That's great stuff. Hey, John, I know you're busy. I know you're doing a lot of spots today. I appreciate you making some time, a couple moments. We'll certainly get you back on again, hopefully during football season, talk a little more about this. But I appreciate it.
Sounds good. A lot of aftershocks to come. That's
yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Be well. Always great stuff. Thanks, John.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, you got it. John Brennan does a great job covering New Jersey, New York sports biz, gaming, Meadowlands since 2002. Great follow on Twitter at Bergen Brennan.